I want to say before I talk about myself that I really love and have grown to appreciate into adulthood the prairie, the Delta. And you know, as I was driving here today, I was reflecting on the beauty that is the Delta. That I can say as an Arkansas resident, somebody who grew up in the Ozarks, it's different than the terrain that I'm used to. Although as a gardener, I'm really jealous of your soil. We have a little bit of dirt sprinkled between the rocks, and so we're fighting uphill the whole way. But you know, as I think about this area and this huge swath of the state, the things that I focus on are that you guys have very, very good soil, and you have very, very good people. And I think those two things are tied together. I really do. You know, I've decided that if you're going to be a farmer, you're one of either two kinds of people. Either you're a Las Vegas style gambler, or you're a heavy duty prayer. And those are your only two options. And so I think that most of them land on that second side. And I think it produces folks of great character and people that I've grown to love. So. It's a real pleasure to be with you today. Specifically, my background is I'm actually not a pharmacist, which is okay. It's okay being confused with one. My dad was a pharmacist, is a pharmacist, and my younger sister is just finishing pharmacy school at UAMS this May. And so I come from my family is a pharmacy family, and I've also run about a dozen pharmacies around the state of Arkansas as well. So I'm very familiar with that part of the healthcare system, and in addition to that, I've worked as a hospital consultant and have worked in a number of other healthcare related industries. And I should also say I understand that several of you are either school teachers or retired school teachers, and my mom was a school teacher for several years, and then also served as both a member and as president of the school board in Mountain Home. So you know, I come from a healthcare and education family. And so it's not surprising that I would go in, professionally speaking, end up managing in the healthcare sector. But then also I spent entirely too long in school, and so rather than being a pharmacist, what I actually am is a historian of the early American Revolution period. And so I studied early American political discourse and wrote an entirely too long book about the American Revolution. But here's how that plays out. That's kind of an odd background, period. But it's especially an odd background for somebody who's running for Congress. And I, like a lot of people who go to graduate school and get PhDs, love ideas. But I was always kind of an odd fit, because I am so passionate about ideas that I just demand that those ideas get put into action. And so because of that, I can't read Abraham Lincoln's second inaugural address and not act. I can't read the writings of Thomas Paine or some of the other folks during the founding generation and not act. And if you know, when everybody a lot of times will ask, so what motivated you to get into this race? And if I had to really boil it down, my answer is that I spent the better part of a decade learning at the feet of the founding generation. I read their diaries, I read their letters, I've been in the white glove libraries, you know, where you check all your belongings at the door because everything in there's priceless. And I've held the letters, you know, between George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and other folks that we have a great deal of reverence and respect for. And I've seen what they intended this country to be. Now, this country's never been perfect, and we shouldn't confuse ourselves in thinking that there was ever a day where everything worked real smoothly. Thomas Jefferson and John Adams didn't even speak to each other for decades because they disagreed so vehemently about policy. So partisan bickering has always been there. But I've seen and I've studied and I've written about these men and women who made great sacrifices that weren't necessarily in their immediate best interest, but sacrifices that were clearly in the interest of posterity, of generations to come. Sacrifices that we've reaped benefits from. And I've seen how Congress and the executive branch and all the rest of our federal government was designed to work. And so the dissonance that I experience between how it's working now and how it was intended to work is so great that probably that single thing is what motivates me to act. And it just so happens that in addition to having studied and learned and written about these folks, that my professional experience, again, I was supposed to take a faculty job teaching at a university, but ended up starting a renewable energy company with 9 of my former students from Northwestern University up in Chicago. And so I'm the kind of person who I take the knowledge that I've gathered and I want to put it to good use. And so I happen to have spent a lot of time working in the healthcare field, in the education field. I've taught college for several years, and then also in the energy field, in dealing with renewable energy, and also worked in telecommunications, which I know is a very big deal and something I'm particularly passionate about for the Delta, because in order for you guys to be able to compete in the global marketplace, we've got to get you broadband internet. We've got to get fiber optic cable in the ground, and we've got to make sure that you guys are in a level playing field with the rest of America and the rest of the world. And and then I also have actually worked as a framing carpenter and done some real estate development. So even the construction and real estate industry are things that are near and dear to me. So, you know, it's funny, my professional background lines up real closely with a lot of the hot button issues that are being debated in Washington right now. And so you all know, for those of you who are teachers or in whatever other profession, there's a way that politicians have a tendency to speak, and we learn buzzwords, and we'll throw out those buzzwords, and and we know just enough to try to convince you that we know what we're talking about. Well, I really look at the state of our nation, the state of our economy right now, and say we've got some difficult problems. These are not juvenile problems. These are very complex problems that have a lot of moving parts. And those of you who, for instance, if you've been a teacher and you say, I want to fix education. Well, if you've never been in the classroom, if you've never worked with students who may be disadvantaged from their home life or from any number of other factors, in my opinion, you're going to have a really difficult time, just learning the vocabulary that's so specific to a particular industry, and B, you're gonna, I would argue, it may take you a decade to get to the point where you even understand the questions to ask enough that you might be able to provide actually, proactive solutions. And so, though I tend to have, and some people say, well, you haven't been in the state legislature, you haven't been working for a congressman. I see that as an advantage, actually. I see that as I've been out there doing these things and understanding these fields. And my goal is, throughout this campaign and beyond, to take that knowledge and put it to good use, put it to action. So with that, I want to open it up to you guys, and you can ask me any question. You can pin me to the wall. I encourage it. It's good for me. So thanks for having me again.
Very good.